Greetings, everyone! Here is the magnificent Breitspurbahn. Next to a normal train, it looked exactly like this. These gigantic carriages were planned to have swimming pools, cinemas, reading rooms, and observation decks. At first glance, the Breitspurbahn seems like pure madness, as if it was invented by someone who had no idea what they were doing. But in reality, everything started with surprisingly logical reasoning. During World War I, railways were the main arteries of transportation. Trucks and aircraft existed, but they simply couldn't deliver the required performance. The moment Hitler came to power, he immediately began modernizing the railways. There are only a few ways to increase railway capacity. Run more trains, from 3 to 10 per hour. Increase axle load, from 20 tons to 60 tons per wagon. Improve couplings, so one locomotive can pull 50 wagons instead of 20. But the German leadership chose what they considered the most logical path: make the trains themselves bigger, taller, and faster. This wasn't just megalomania. Hitler genuinely enjoyed having the strongest weapon, the heaviest tank, the largest palace, and this incredible railway fit perfectly into that concept. Breitspurbahn literally means broad-gauge railway, and broad it was, exactly 3,000 millimeters. For comparison, standard European gauge is only 1,435 millimeters. The project wasn't born in the minds of engineers. It came from politicians. On July 17, 1941, Hitler summoned Fritz Todt, the Minister of Armaments and Munitions, and gave the order. The poor minister was shocked by the proposed dimensions. Converting existing lines to 3-meter gauge was physically impossible. New stations, junctions, bridges, basically the entire railway infrastructure had to be rebuilt from scratch. That would mean running 2 completely separate railway systems in the country at the same time. Railway workers tried to talk Hitler out of it, suggesting simply adding a second pair of tracks to existing lines, a method used on all busy routes today. But Hitler wanted something spectacular, and the engineers didn't fancy ending up in a concentration camp. So the Breitspurbahn project was green-lit. From the very beginning, it was treated as Hitler's personal toy. He constantly changed his mind. We need 3 meters. No, 4, or maybe 5 would be better. In the end, he returned to the original 3-meter idea. All the biggest German industrial giants got involved: locomotive manufacturers, engineering companies. Huge factories invested in the project. By 1942, the first sketches and calculations appeared. Initially, the line was supposed to connect Hamburg, Berlin, Nuremberg, and south to Austria, Linz. Later, extensions were planned to Paris, Belgrade, Istanbul, Kiev, and Rostov. And then came the truly insane ideas. 1941 was a victorious year for Germany. They had taken most of Europe almost without fighting and were rapidly advancing toward Moscow. Convinced of final victory, Hitler dreamed even bigger: extend the Breitspurbahn to Rome and Madrid in the west, and all the way to India and Vladivostok in the east. They even planned a bridge across the Bosphorus and, believe it or not, a line through Alaska to Canada and the United States. The carriages themselves were legendary. No narrow corridors, no bunk beds. Each wagon was 8 meters wide and 7.3 meters tall, taller than a 2-story building. A full train would stretch 1,200 meters and could carry up to 4,000 passengers, not counting crew and armed guards. First-class carriages looked like palaces: mahogany and copper decorations, carpets, upholstered furniture, and even 2 toilets per carriage. Pure luxury. Sleeper cars had kitchens so poorer passengers could cook their own meals, very useful on a Berlin-Vladivostok trip. There were wardrobes, showers, dining cars, a hairdresser, a 196-seat cinema, Baths, a sauna, a laundry room, and yes, even a solarium. Luggage cars were so huge you could fit 8 cars side by side and still have space left. At the rear was an observation car with a panoramic terrace. For forced laborers being transported from occupied territories, a different type of carriage was planned. Standing room only, 480 people per car. Security was taken extremely seriously. 20mm anti-aircraft guns were mounted on the roofs, with ammunition magazines below and dedicated gun crews. The whole train weighed up to 10,000 tons and required monstrous locomotives. In just 1 year, German designers came up with over 40 different concepts: giant steam locomotives, gas turbine locomotives, diesel hydraulic, and electric ones. The most powerful version produced 28,800 kilowatts and could reach 250 kilometers per hour. For comparison, the strongest electric locomotive in the world until 2020 had only 10,652 kilowatts. Everything had to be redesigned from the ground up.